My name is Stephen McLaughlin. This video is the second in a series of whistleblowing disclosure videos surrounding cover-ups, corruption and potential serious criminality involving my employer, Greater Glasgow and Clyde Healthboard. This specific video is going to be tailored to the subject of the cover-up for responsibility of death of Mr. Edward McCluskey that has been widely publicised in the national press. In front of you, you will see the front page of the Greenock Telegraph, in which I openly accused my employer of cover-ups, corruption and potential serious criminality. Despite this being in the front page of a paper, there was no subsequent action, nobody was suspended and the police were not called. What you see in front of you now is another newspaper article. This is the Daily Record newspaper that speaks of the treatment that the McCluskey family received and also corroborates my claims that they also believed that the investigation into Mr. McCluskey's death was falsified and that they were lied to regarding the responsibility for his death. As you can see here, when you zoom in to the particular part of that specific newspaper article, you'll see that the journalist specifically says that the Health Board chiefs said no one made the link between his medication and the rash, but a record probe revealed a nurse did flag up the possibility of a drug allergy. It also says a significant incident review graded the incident as extreme, but failed to mention a nurse at Greenock's Inverclyde Royal Hospital raised the possibility of a drug allergy after he noticed a rash on Eddie's groin. This is what you see in front of you now is an extract from one of the investigatory documents, and it clearly states only further questioning led to the admission that he had been given penicillin and that no member of staff made the connection between the rash and the misadministration of drugs. Now this is the key point that I'm going to take you to, and this is the crux of the cover-up. I am going to now systematically take you through information, evidence and recordings to prove that NHS Greater Glasgow and Clyde have actively been involved in a cover-up for the responsibility of Mr. McCluskey's death in order to lie to his family about the circumstances that led, unfortunately, to his demise. What you see in front of you now is a signed witness testimony by the prime key witness who discovered Mr. McCluskey. This specific person had contacted me when I had been asked to cover Ward 4A of the Larkfield unit in Greenock. My typical ward would have been Ward 4B, in which I usually carried out my shifts, but due to staffing issues on that particular day, I was asked to cover Ward 4A due to the shortness of staff there. When I entered the ward, and after a while of being there, I was approached by a healthcare assistant, and a very experienced healthcare assistant at that. And as she says here clearly on this statement, I approached Stephen McLaughlin and to alert him that the rash was present on the patient. Stephen assessed the situation. He then instructed me not to put any creams or other items that may be the possible cause of the allergy near the patient and advised that he would call the doctor. Now, there are multiple key issues and parts of this statement that I wish you to focus on. One, that I had clearly stated not put on any stimulants because I believed that this was an allergy. And two, that I was going to contact the doctor. Now, what I'm going to do now is I'm going to systematically take you through elements that are going to showcase that the information that NHS Greater Glasgow and Clyde gave to the family of Mr. McCluskey is not likely to be accurate. Now, as you can see here, I'm going to leave you a demonstration of what drug prescription and administration sheets entail. Now, every drug administration sheet has the drug, dose and time of administration documented on it. It also has a specific signature box to document the drug was administered or given. There is also a specific allergy alert box on the document itself. Now, in the case of Mr. McCluskey, the allergy alert box clearly had the drug in the allergy box. At the time of my shift, when I was asked to cover Ward 4A, the drug was not administered to Mr. McCluskey. No signature was on the administration box proving that it wasn't administered, whereas all the other patients had signatures on theirs due to the fact that they had their drugs administered that morning by myself. Additional supporting evidence related to this is there is a red alert drug allergy sticker on the patient's drug prescription sheet. There is a red alert drug allergy sticker on the patient's notes that the doctor specifically wrote in when they attended the ward after they were contacted to evaluate the situation. The doctor's signed entry in the patient's notes evidences medical evaluation of the incident at the specific time the key witness stated I was contacting the doctor about the allergy. Patients have notice boards above their beds detailing drug allergies. This is the specific area where the doctor had actually assessed Mr. McCluskey at his bedside. Patients have red alert drug allergy wristbands on their wrists to alert people that they have allergies. Now, to summarise, a healthcare assistant found Mr. McCluskey, contacted myself. I assessed the situation. Now, it's worthwhile noting that I am also a qualified medical emergency lecturer who demonstrates to classes of people how to identify potential allergies. I identified that that was most likely an allergy, told her not to put on any stimulants as a result of my concerns. Then I went and assessed his drug prescription sheet to uncover what was the specific nature of the background of this patient's health conditions. Discovered that the patient was documented to have an allergy to the specific drug that he was prescribed on his drug administration sheet. Did not administer his drugs due to my concerns and contacted the doctor, as witnessed by the prime key witness, and the fact that the doctors wrote in the notes at the time that they came to the ward and were asked to evaluate the situation, in which the doctor would have been confronted with all of those allergy alert stickers on the board, on the notes, in the office, on the card decks, on his wrist, the fact that I had told him, and the fact that the doctor is a qualified medical expert that had come in to evaluate a rash. Now, it's worthwhile also noting that when the doctor attended the ward, the situation was escalated to the senior nurse that was on the ward at that time, who was a regular member of staff in Ward 4A that knew the patient well. Despite my raising the concerns about an allergy, this particular senior nurse, alongside the doctor, had overruled my concerns and came to the conclusion that it was not, in fact, an allergy. Now, this was the same doctor, I believe, but I'm not 100% sure of, that prescribed the drug in the first place. And I'm pretty sure also that this is the same senior nurse that had also previously administered the drug on previous shifts. When I had alerted that I thought this was an allergy, both of these individuals assessed the situation with all of that information that was been available to them and overruled my concerns of an allergy, and then subsequently instructed all of the nurses on the following shifts after I had left to continue to administer the drugs to the patient that unfortunately led to his transfer to the medical emergency wards, where he unfortunately passed away very shortly after. Now, in addition to all of that, what you're looking at in front of you, now this is where in the previous video that I released, I'd talked about multiple subjects related to the scandal. There was contaminated water cover-ups, the fact that I'd been framed, lots of stuff in that. Now, these particular elements of this scandal as a whole overlap each other consistently, and it makes the situation very complicated. This is why I'm intentionally solely focusing on the fact that I'm trying to showcase that NHS Greater Glasgow and Clyde lied to the family of Mr. Edward McCluskey. So I'm only going to briefly touch on certain aspects that you may not understand the context of at this particular point, but when you watch the other videos that will come following this video, you will then clearly understand what the situation is. This particular information in front of you is an allegation that the NHS made to me 8 months later when they were trying to frame me for the responsibility of his death due to the fact that I was at risk of uncovering a contaminated water supply in the Healthboard. Now, you will clearly see on that it states that if I did know that coamoxiclav contained penicillin, then I demonstrated willful disregard of knowledge and allowed my colleagues to administer a medication, coamoxiclav, that I knew to contain penicillin that the patient was allergic to. Now, I want you to focus on the fact that if I did know and willful disregard, that's stating there that if I did know, I intended for that to happen. I intended for those people to administer those drugs. Now, what you see in front of you is a Freedom of Information Data Access request to the second investigatory manager. Now, it's worthwhile noting that there was two specific investigations related to this case. The first one was the SCI, Serious Clinical Incident Investigation, and the second one was a subsequent investigation in which I was being framed for the responsibility for his death. Now, you will clearly see here that the second investigatory manager was asking the first serious clinical incident investigatory manager, who compiled the report that stated to the McCluskey family that no one made the association between the allergy, the rash and the drugs. So it states here, Mr. McLaughlin was aware. Can you please, I'm looking to ascertain if Mr. McLaughlin was aware that the medicine in the form of coamoxiclav contained penicillin at the SCI. Can you confirm if Mr. McLaughlin gave evidence that he either knew or did not know that coamoxiclav contained penicillin? Now, this is the response, once again, of the person that delivered and compiled the report to the McCluskey family that nobody made the association between the allergy, the pill and the rash. Yes, Mr. McLaughlin, or Stephen McLaughlin, stated that he was aware coamoxiclav contained penicillin, and not only that, that it was he who identified that this may be the cause of the patient's physical deterioration. Subsequent to that, in addition to the request of the SCI Serious Clinical Incident Investigatory Manager, the secondary investigatory manager also wrote to the ward manager and asked them, can you remember if Stephen McLaughlin stated that he knew that coamoxiclav contained penicillin? Here is the response to the ward manager in which the incident occurred. Staff Nurse McLaughlin stated at the meeting on the 21st of the 8th 17 with ourselves that he did know coamoxiclav contained penicillin. Now, before I start talking about what's in front of you at the moment, you now have myself, who repeatedly said that I knew it was in it. You've got the ward manager that said that I knew it was in it. You've got the SCI manager that said that I knew it was in it. You've got the prime key witness that witnessed me stating that I was going to call the doctor because I thought it was an allergy. And you've got the proof in the drug recording prescription sheet that that patient's drugs were not administered on that particular shift that I was on, and everybody else's was, clearly demonstrating that I had concerns that the allergy was related to the drug, pretty much due to the fact that there was multiple drug alert allergy notices all over the ward, including the drug recording sheet. What you will also see in front of you now is this is where it starts to just get absolutely incredible. This is allegations that the Health Board made to the NMC, that's the Nursing Midwifery Council, about my own competency for practice, in which they are alleging I failed to communicate concerns to colleagues regarding the administration of medication to which a patient is allergic. Now, the Daily Record article that you've seen at the beginning of the video was dated well after this. The family, at this point, when the NHS were stating this to the NMC, have still been told continuously nobody made the association between the allergy, the pill and the drugs. Yet here are the same organisation reporting me to the Nursing and Midwifery Council when it suited them to frame me for the responsibility for his death, when I was at risk of uncovering a contaminated water supply in the Health Board, clearly alleging that I knew that it was there and did not communicate that to colleagues. Now, everybody knows that nurses are responsible for their own practice. Given the fact that the patient never got any drugs on my shift, I left there. The subsequent shifts thereafter, the patient was administered the drugs. The shift before I was on, the patient was administered the drugs. The doctor was asked to come and assess their situation. I was overruled by a senior nurse and a medical doctor, and other nurses administered it, despite obviously being aware of all the notices that were around the ward. And here they are trying to frame me for the responsibility for his death. It's worthwhile also noting, none of these nurses or the doctor or the senior nurse were suspended. As you can see here, here is myself claiming to the Sunday Post that I was repeatedly requesting the police be called. At this point, it's now actually 25 times to NHS Greater Glasgow in time. At the point of this article, it was 22 times. This was also not just due to the concerns related to the allergy in the pill, and that I knew that they were covering up the responsibility for Mr McCluskey's death, but this was also including other situations due to the fact that I was also aware of the contaminated water cover-up, the fact that I was being framed for his death. There was multiple fraudulent fake documents that Police Scotland had subsequently had analysed and advised me to take it back to the NHS, relay the breakdown to them, and then the NHS would have been legally and professionally obliged to contact them. The police stated that I couldn't make the complaint. It would have to either come from the patient's family or my employer through a professional investigation, which I did. NHS, despite me relaying the breakdown that was given specifically by Police Scotland, they refused to phone the police. Here you will see in front of you, the same as the previous video, the Director of Human Resources, despite all of the criminal allegations that I was making, the evidence that was repeatedly submitted to show that there was a cover-up related to Mr McCluskey's responsibility for his death, the contaminated water situation and the multiple fraudulent fake documents were in multiple investigations. Here she is stating clearly, no one within Greater Glasgow and Clyde will be contacting Police Scotland, nor will we be opening any further discussions in the matter. This is despite the severity and absolutely horrific nature of everything that I have said, the fact that a member of staff has said that there's been a cover-up into a patient's death, the family of the patient has also said there's been a cover-up into the patient's death, and all of the evidence that was submitted by myself on multiple occasions into the investigations, which, by the way, they corruptly shut down every single one of them without any appropriate investigation. Now, at this point, you'll be wondering, how can they possibly get away with that with such overwhelming evidence and information, such as I've relayed to you there previously? It will astonish you to find out exactly some of the tactics that they used in order to carry this out. Now, I wish to take you back to the prime key witness that discovered the patient with the rash and raised the alarm. I approached Stephen McLaughlin to alert him that a rash was present on the patient. Stephen assessed the situation. He then instructed me not to put on any creams or other items that may be the possible cause of the allergy near the patient, and advised he would contact the doctor. Now, that's very, very clear. Now, what you will also find as well is that in the SCI, that's a serious clinical incident review, in which the investigatory manager lied to the family of the deceased patient by falsifying the report, he refused to interview the prime key witness. He refused to interview the person that found the patient. He also released me from the serious clinical incident review, congratulated me for the fact that I'd contacted the doctor and I never administered the medication, and released me from that investigation at that time. So the two key witnesses to prove that the doctor had came, it had been overruled, and this was actually the NHS's responsibility due to the fact that the alarm was raised, a doctor came to assess it, and a medical doctor and a senior nurse overruled the concerns of an allergy and instructed the nurses to consistently give the patients the drugs that eventually led to his transfer to the medical wards and unfortunately led to his demise shortly thereafter. This, I've just jumped the gun there. The next piece you're going to witness is a recording of the secondary investigatory manager. Now, as I explained previously, there was two investigations. The second investigatory manager also astonishingly refused to interview the person that found the patient. Now, even if one of those investigatory managers did not interview the person that found the patient, that would be absolutely remarkable, and the chances of that happening would be absolutely off the chart. Do not tell me that Scotland's largest health board, after spending countless amounts of money on two major investigations into a patient's death, did not remember to interview the person that found the patient. That is absolute nonsensical information. If anybody was going to investigate any death, doesn't need to be in a health board, the first thing anybody would do would be interview the person that found him. Both of these investigatory managers are trying to imply that they just forgot to interview the person that found him. That's incredible. In the next piece, you're going to hear a recording of the second investigatory manager trying to explain this away by saying that he never took the cue to interview this person. Now, not only did this investigatory manager happen well after the serious clinical incident investigation, multiple people had been interviewed by that time. He'd reviewed all the evidence and he'd interviewed me twice in the second investigation. On both occasions, I demanded that he interview the person that found the patient, and I found it remarkable that he hadn't done so. And this was many, many months previous to this recording. At the point of this recording, nobody had still interviewed the person that discovered the patient, the prime key witness. The only reason that I've got this statement is I had to go to the extremity of approaching the person and asking them to sign a statement personally to prove that there was an active cover-up ongoing within Greater Glasgow and Clyde Healthboard.
So Stephen was the first person interviewed. Can I ask then, I think Stephen mentioned somebody in his interview that wasn't interviewed.
Yeah. And really, I only found out about it, or only came to light for me when I read Stephen's statement of case the day before our previous hearing. I do put my hands up and I do apologise that I didn't take the cue from that investigating meeting. Because what I was trying to do, I'm a very thorough person, and I was trying to get as much information as possible on the document.
He's a very thorough person, he says, but he just didn't interview the person that found the patient. In the second recording, you will also hear this same individual where I am specifically confronting him about the fact that I had repeatedly demanded he interview this person many, many, many months previous in 2 separate investigations. And he again tries to deflect that away. You will also hear the chair of this meeting identifying that I'm starting to follow a line of questioning that is starting to expose that there is a cover-up having occurred in Greater Glasgow and Clyde Healthboard, and this particular chair interjects and tries to stop me from pursuing that line of questioning.
One of the main parts really I'd like to question you on. Now, multiple times at both investigations, you had asked me questions about how this all arrived, what happened, how did I discover the patient had a rash, and I told you numerous times, which is in multiple different parts of your appendices, that had contacted me and she advised me that there was a rash. Now, I had then went and I advised her, as in the statement that were provided, not to put on any creams, not to put on any stimulants or whatever, just let until the doctor comes, because we find out exactly what's causing that allergy, right? Now, given the fact that she was the first, I never identified it, she identified that she's the key witness to this whole situation. Why did you not interview the key witness? I know, but I don't understand. But
I didn't take the cue from...
There's multiple times.
We've covered that sufficiently.
They've covered that sufficiently and provided an answer. No, actually, they've not provided any sufficient answer. If that would have been a genuine, independent chair of a meeting that was just uncovering the fact that there's been 2 major investigations into a patient's death and that suddenly somebody's admitting that the person that found the patient was never interviewed, that specific chair should have escalated that and demanded that the investigation was reopened. No, to the contrary, that particular chair identified that I was following a line of questioning that was going to expose cover-ups and corruption in the NHS and interjected and stonewalled me from being able to pursue that line of questioning in order to close that avenue down. You will see that that's a repeated tactic by this particular chair when lines of questions are followed that start to uncover cover-ups, and this particular chair intervenes in order to prevent any further exposure of this information under the knowledge of the fact that the meeting itself is being officially recorded, and they did not want that information on the recording. On the next recording, you will hear the same person being confronted with the fact that when he submitted his investigator a report to the commissioning manager, he had explained to me, because I had asked him for an update, and he said that the report has been submitted and you will find the conclusions very shortly. I never heard anything, and then contacted him again and asked him what's happening with the investigative report. He then explained that the investigative report was not accepted and had to do another one. So what I then done, bearing in mind I'd made multiple allegations of corruption, criminality, cover-ups, contaminated water, the responsibility for death, major allegations, and demanded the police were phoned multiple times, refused at every occasion, and that he would have been documenting that in his report, you would assume. So what I personally done was carried out a Freedom of Information data access request for the first submission report in order to uncover what it was that they were trying to change at that point. What you will now hear is that same individual trying to imply that that did not exist. They refused to release that in the Freedom of Information data access request, stating that the report didn't exist. He tries to manipulatively explain this away, saying it's a working document, but you will also hear him clearly stating that he emailed that first report to not only the commissioning manager, but also to an HR representative, which would have meant it would have been a copy on his computer, the HR manager's computer, and also the commissioning manager's computer. It's the law that any, especially an investigatory document into a person's death, must be kept for multiple years. And in the Freedom of Information data access, due to the fact that I was the person that was being accused of killing the man, I had a right to view that report, at which they were trying to imply didn't exist.
Thank you for that adjournment. At this stage, we'll open it up for Murphy to ask any questions from as the investigating manager, and we will then subsequently ask any questions we have regarding the report we've got, and thereafter it will just give you the opportunity to present your case and again for questions thereafter. So hand over to yourselves for any questions you've got at this stage.
Sorry. My first question, I don't know whether I remember them, is in and around, you were asked to do the investigation into this.
Yes.
And we met in November, and I think we heard at the last meeting from that you produced a report that she felt didn't contain information.
It was just the first draft of the working document I was on.
Okay.
That obviously, being the commissioning manager, I've been given her updates, and it says when I've got all the information onto the working draft, I'll share it. I shared it with the HR colleague as well at that time. It was very lengthy. I've got a kind of habit when compiling reports or essays or anything like that. I just get all the information on, and it's easier for me to take information out than add stuff in. So it was, I think it was 30 odd pages.
38, I think.
Yeah.
He clearly states he submitted officially a 38-page document to the commissioning manager and the HR manager. Now, what he's trying to imply is that report didn't exist because that was a working document. And the fact that when he went onto his Word on his computer at work, that document just changed when he wrote it. Now, clearly, that is not accurate. There would have been a copy on the HR manager's computer in their received box, in the commissioning manager's received box, and in his outbox, at which legally they would have had to have kept for multiple years. You will now hear him once again. Now, bearing in mind, he knew that I was following this train of questioning, and he was trying to explain this away by saying that it was a working document and it changed. Now, you will also hear once again the same chair identifying that I'm following a line of questioning that is once again uncovering that there has been an active collaborative cover-up in order to hide investigative reports into Mr. McCluskey's death, and she intervenes and once again stonewalls me in order to prevent me from exposing any other information on the recording of the meeting.
Forward like that.
How can I ask in what format did you submit that to? Did you give that in an email? Did you give that in a letter? Did you give it in the documents?
It would actually been emailed.
So when I carried out the freedom of information request and the data access request to get that, you said it didn't exist. Where is it?
Well, I just started working on it again.
So where is the original?
That is the original, it's a working, that was the original, it's a working
If you
document.
submitted it via email, there must have been an email copy that you sent with that as an attachment. So why did you
What's
not?
the relevance of this at this stage?
Because what I'm trying to get at is that I personally believe that the first submission was completely different from the second under the direction of taking what the narrative for which she wanted. I believe that had already compiled his report and submitted it to her. There was conclusions made and she overruled him and told him to.
It was just.
Let's explain that that wasn't the case.
Okay. Well, he's explained that it wasn't the case, but where is the original? I don't understand how you couldn't release the original document that you sent to prove that that wasn't the case.
If that's a concern, I think that's got out with this.
Now, once again, you hear that chair. Now, bearing in mind this chair is sitting there witnessing the fact that not only did the person not interview the person that found the patient, but also this person is trying to actively conceal an official report that was submitted regarding the investigation. And this same chair, very timely and conveniently, intervened to stop that line of questioning. Now, if this would have been a genuine independent chair, that person would have said, right, they've not interviewed the person that found the patient and they're actively trying to hide an investigatory report. We need to stop these proceedings. I need to escalate this. We need to investigate the investigation itself, and we need to go and interview the person that found the patient and find out exactly what's went on here. None of that occurred. That was never escalated. All they did was just close down the line of questioning and try to stonewall me repeatedly from maintaining these questions that were actively uncovering on official recordings that there had been an active cover-up into Mr. McCluskey's death. Clearly, corruption was ongoing, just based on the information that was being presented by these people here that are absolutely not acceptable or normal in an investigation into a patient's death. You don't hide reports and you don't not interview the person that found them. That's absolute nonsensical tactics for an investigatory manager unless they're trying to hide something. In the next recording, you're going to hear myself confronting the chief executive, the chairman of the board and the director of HR, the same director of HR that refused to phone the police, as you've seen in the previous email. I'm releasing this recording to yourselves and so that everybody is completely aware that the chief executive, the chairman of the board and the director of HR were absolutely 100% certain of the severity of the allegations and information that I was telling them, and they are well aware of all of this situation, not just of what I'm telling you here just now related to Mr. McCluskey, but related to the contaminated water concerns, the falsification of documents, falsification of reports, the abuse of whistleblowers, multiple serious issues, and once again, no meaningful investigations occurred. The police were never called. Nobody was ever suspended. An SCI senior clinical incident headed with in which officials refused to investigate submitted evidence. This incorporated multiple drug cardexes that were subsequently destroyed. This has been referenced in multiple meetings, and I believe it's been referenced on an audio recording that's currently in your possession. Official reports that were ultimately falsified to deceive the family of Mr. Edward McCluskey, which can be proven, about NHS's responsibility for his death. Number two, taking you to the two investigatory processes commissioned by and managed by that involved the creation and utilisation of multiple documents confirmed by Police Scotland to be fake. For the record, Police Scotland, when they interviewed myself as part of this whole, it wasn't even part of that, it was part of something else, they had viewed these documents and gave a systematic breakdown as to why they were deemed fake. I then relayed this to multiple individuals within the organisation in official formats and explained to them that the police have said these are fake because of this, that and that.
They have explained that I have to relay that to you and use it to contact the police. I can't make the complaint because it would either have to come from my employer through the systematic procedures that are in NHS Greater Glasgow and Clyde, or the family of Mr McCluskey would have had to make it. So I then followed the instruction of Police Scotland to do so. Every single person refused to contact the police. And I've reams of people that have refused to contact the police, despite seeing the evidence firsthand, and taken through the breakdown of the same. The original investigator for the same investigation I was managing was destroyed, as admitted by on an official audio recording currently in the possession of GGC. We find that originating in the 2 disciplinary meetings. Despite my allegations of criminality that was given to him and the falsification of documents, Mr. under the instruction of Mr. For the record, Mr. personally created the fake allegations herself, blanketly refused to investigate despite how serious the allegations were that I was making. Furthermore, the allegations that were created by myself, which Police Scotland subsequently confirmed, this is another topic, subsequently confirmed were either grievous bodily harm or manslaughter against me. Now, that's been confirmed by the police. The allegations that were made against me were this. So due to the serious nature of these allegations, I demanded multiple times the police, to which they denied blanketly. I said, well, if you're accusing me of such serious criminal activities with intent, which they were, you have a moral obligation and a legal obligation to contact the police. You're accusing me, I'm telling you to phone the police. Refuse to phone the police because, as my understanding, if the police would have got involvement, they would have uncovered that the whole situation was corrupt. And they obviously had viewed the documents and said themselves that they were fake. So
there's a key aspect there that I'd forgotten to mention earlier. The allegation that they had made of willful disregard on my part, when I had contacted Police Scotland, they did confirm that because the gentleman died, and I was stating that I did know that penicillin contained coamoxiclav repeatedly, that was an allegation of either manslaughter or grievous bodily harm, as detailed by the police. They also said at that point that the NHS were legally and professionally obliged to contact the police, and I demanded they contact the police. Now, despite the fact that I was telling them to phone the police on me because they were making these ridiculous allegations, of which I knew were all false and fake, they clearly knew they didn't want the police to investigate that matter, because the police, if they did investigate it, would have uncovered the full cover-up and the fact that they were hiding the responsibility for Mr McCluskey's death and lying to his family, falsifying reports, falsifying documents, etc., etc. Now, the next recording that you'll hear is the same individual's Chief Executive, Chairman of the Board and Director of Human Resources, in which I was clearly stating that the whistleblowing process had been followed and corruptly closed down without being appropriately investigated.
Following that was the grievance that was corruptly closed down by she's the head of planning and strategy for Clyde HSCP using manipulative means, despite being supplied with and viewing damning evidence supporting corruption, abusive procedure, falsification of an investigatory report, the cover-up of the details related to a deceased patient, and multiple fraudulent documents used for targeted abuse. Ms. decided to personally close down the grievance without a...
I apologise, that was actually about the grievance. There's so much information about this, sometimes even I get lost. So that was the grievance procedure. They were being informed that was corruptly closed down without being investigated, despite the manager of the grievance personally viewing the evidence that I've just relayed to you, plus a lot more, and deciding that that situation should not be investigated. The next recording is actually me notifying about the whistleblowing process and the fact that it was completely corrupt, and despite the whistleblowing manager viewing firsthand the documents and the evidence, they also corruptly shut down the whistleblowing without allowing it to be investigated.
Who I met in this very building and who led the whistleblowing process, despite her having viewed first-hand evidence supporting the falsification of the original SCI report, lies told to the family of a deceased man to cover up responsibility for his death, multiple fraudulent documents being created and repeatedly used, and the destruction of the reports involved in the investigation, commissioned by accuser who was actively directing who was supposed to be the impartial investigatory manager. As confirmed by him on the audio recording already in your possession, he admitted that she was telling him what to do as the supposed impartial manager. Dr. closed down the whistleblowing process despite having first-hand viewed the fake documents and the evidence, and knowing herself that had made an allegation of criminality and everybody refused to phone police.
The next recording that you're going to hear is from the same meeting. Again, Director of Human Resources, Chairman of the Board and Chief Executive in the same meeting in the boardroom, the main boardroom of NHS Greater Glasgow and Clyde headquarters in Gartnavel Royal Hospital. This was specifically the section where I was clearly detailing that despite the family of Mr. McCluskey stating to the press that they believed that there was a cover-up in relation to their father's death and that they were being lied to, and the fact that I subsequently as a member of staff was making the exact same allegations, and that Mr. McCluskey's family, when they said that, should have caused an investigation or the police to be contacted. What subsequently happened, and this is a repeated tactic by Greater Glasgow and Clyde Healthboard when they are questioned by the press, they portray that there is an open investigation and it's not appropriate to answer any questions regarding that. What subsequently happened is after the time had passed and the heat had went down regarding the questions from the press, they then downgraded that investigation to a desktop review and shut it down without appropriate investigation.
When the family of Mr. McCluskey, as the dead man that I was falsely accused of killing, openly and independently corroborated my claims to the national press that they believed that they had been lied to in regards to his death, NHS GGC manipulatively stated to the press that they could not comment due to an ongoing investigation. In reality, there was no ongoing investigation. When I questioned her, stated the same. She then stated that there was now a serious organisational investigation triggered, quite rightly so, by the allegations of a current member of staff who says he's got evidence for the same and submitted it multiple times to prove the falsification of a report investigation into a man's death. And the family of the same man simultaneously saying exactly the same thing, completely independently, in the public domain. So at that point, I was under the awareness that that would be the case. However, personally, once it was deemed there was no need to block the questions from the press, which is a repeated tactic in here, personally downgraded the self-declared serious organisational investigation to a simplistic desktop review, personally closed it down without conducting proper investigation. This is despite the seriousness of the allegations that I have repeatedly and evidently submitted via email and submission to every investigation, and the family of a dead man saying exactly the same things as that I was saying, and that was deemed simplistic enough for a desktop review and to be closed down without investigation. Once again, a cover-up had occurred.
The next recording is the same individuals in the same meeting, and I was clearly demonstrating that the response to the Queen Elizabeth situation surrounding the contaminated water cover-up has always been, it's been a mistake, it wasn't intentional, and the fact that I was actually sitting with a vast ream of evidence to prove collaborative, intentional actions in order to cover up the responsibility for death, and that the reason I'm putting this on here is to demonstrate that the Chief Executive, the Chairman of the Board and the Director of Human Resources were all very much aware of that fact.
The response from NHS GGC from the Queen Elizabeth situation is, you know, it's a mistake, it's a shame, it shouldn't have happened, and blah blah blah. I could get into that in greater detail, but we'll not bother. However, in this case, I'm sitting here with evidence to prove organised, premeditated behaviours to cover it up repeatedly and en masse by multiple individuals. This is not any mistake.
The next recording, you will hear myself confronting the Chief Executive, where she remarkably stated that she did not know where any of the evidence was. Now, this is despite me submitting the evidence in multiple different investigations, including 2 investigatory hearings, disciplinary hearing, appeal, whistleblowing, grievance, serious organisational investigation that was downgraded to a desktop review, multiple investigations that the evidence was submitted. And here is the chief executive of the organisation saying she doesn't know where anything is, and turning up for this meeting claiming that she doesn't know where any of the evidence is in order to investigate it, and my direct confrontation of the absolute nonsensical nature of that statement.
Already has been handed in. I refer you to all of the investigations that I have recently raised, in which most of the evidence should be there. I'm quite perplexed as to why you weren't able to retrieve that and bring that with you. Because I've referred you to every single one of the investigations where it all is, and yet you kept asking me for it, which is just perplexing to me, because you've already got multiple copies in your possession. You're the chief executive of the organisation that's got multiple copies. It's bizarre that you can continuously ask me for that.
The last recording is going to be my confrontation of the chief executive, in which she says that she takes the allegations very seriously. The recording speaks for itself. I'd been in front of multiple newspapers making these allegations for a long time. The McCluskey family, who have been treated absolutely appallingly by this organisation, were also completely dismissed, and the recording itself clearly demonstrates that they do not take any allegations seriously, because there's been no suspensions. They've not phoned they've refused to contact the police on 25 occasions, just with me. That's not even taking into consideration other people's demands, and all of the different demands that I have made in multiple investigations for appropriate investigation into the scandal as a whole. And everything has all been closed down without appropriate investigation. Now, why would a health board refuse to contact the police on 25 occasions with the magnitude of the information that I've just presented to yourselves on this video? And I apologise it's so long, but there is no avoiding that. The information I've got is much more than this. I've had to condense this just to put it in a video so that people can see the gravity of this situation. And I'm clearly confronting the NHS chief executive, stating that clearly they don't take any allegations seriously, and the sole aim seems to be to protect the public image of Greater Glasgow and Clyde at all costs.
NHS GDC officials. I'd like to at this point comment on the repeated evidence and remarks of yourself, Miss, who in their emails stated that these take the allegations of corruption and criminality very serious. I draw your attention to the fact that despite me being on the front page of multiple papers, and in, for example, the Sun newspaper, the Daily Record paper, in front of the Telegraph paper, accusing the organisation of corruption, cover-ups and suspected criminality, you took absolutely no action. You done nothing. Not even contacted me, which totally kiboshes your remarks related to the you take anything seriously.
All of these people are still responsible for the health board. All of these nurses, nursing managers, investigatory managers are all still responsible for patient care and running a health board. The police have refused to be contacted on 25 occasions, and there has been no suspensions. Now, this is just the singular subsection of Mr. McCluskey's death that I'm presenting to you here today. These individuals have been presented with much more evidence related to the cover-up of contaminated water, the falsification and fraudulent nature of many documents and reports, and multiple other issues, including the abuse of a whistleblower. I'll let you judge for yourself if you deem that the health board are acting in an appropriate fashion, and if you feel that these individuals should still be operating as responsible for patient care, just based on the information that I've presented to you today. I'd like to thank you for taking the time for listening to this very lengthy video. I'm really sorry it took so long. Please, can you share this video? Please like it, whatever platform you're watching this on. Please like it, please share it, please subscribe to whatever it is. The more people that like, share and subscribe, the algorithm will push this to the top of the whatever it is that it pushes it to the top of, in order for more people to see it. And my goal is for as many people in Scotland to see exactly what NHS Greater Glasgow and Clyde are all about. Everybody needs to see what this health board is all about and the reality of this situation. Nobody's doing anything, and these people are still in charge of patient care. Thank you for taking the time to listen to this video. The next video that I'm going to present to yourself will be incorporating another subject, which will be the falsification of documents and reports and the malicious framing of myself for the responsibility of the death for Mr McCluskey that was closely associated with the motive of my being at risk of uncovering a contaminated water supply in a hospital in NHS Greater Glasgow and Clyde. It's worth noting that it is not the Queen Elizabeth Hospital, it was another hospital. I will go into much greater depth into the next video, and as I say, thank you very much for taking the time to listen to the video. Please like, share and subscribe. Thank you.